that's you. How does it feel to give up your humanity?
Implanting adaptive oracle cell.
What's going on, everyone? Great Talon here, and today the prey is going to be my godeater 3 review. So like its predecessors, godeater 3 is an action role-playing game with a hack-and-slash gameplay mechanic. Players are equipped with god arc-like weapons, they're called, which are transformed into guns. In the game, players are tasked to hunt down and kill massive monsters known as origami. The player character is a godeater who can absorb energy from monsters and unleash burst moves, special attacks that deal out a lot of damage to the enemies. Companion characters, which are controlled by the AI and NPCs, assist in combat. Players can activate an enrage system as well to share combat perks with them during combat. The game can be played cooperatively up to 4 players, and assault missions can accommodate up to 8 players online in random join-up matches. I'll be reviewing this on PS4 Pro, and we'll tackle the full co-op gameplay for the story, as well as how we'll play the majority of the game. So let's jump in and see exactly if this game is worth our time. The graphics and performance and controls are up first. The artistic visual style of godeater 3 is a blend of anime-inspired graphics with a bit of 3D rendering on the character models to give it the feel of a hybrid fusion between an anime and a CGI-like entity. I honestly enjoy the mix of the two. It's something that will break the wheel, so to speak, or reinvent the wheel, but it's an interesting blend that seems to bode well overall, visually speaking. The environments are vibrant and vivacious, and even though the setting is finite and a finite amount of maps and add a feeling of redundancy and repetitive locales when you do the same areas over and over again to do missions and level up and gain materials and everything, when you're presented within these few maps that they keep recycling, they're undeniably pretty to look at and to take in. You have your reddish-brown rocky areas and your underground bluish-gray caverns and tunnels to undertake expeditions on, and they are rendered and scaled quite nicely and vividly for the most part. While the game does not support HDR setting, it does run well at 1080p and upscales if you're playing on a 4K TV, like I was, to its max resolution. And also, the game I found was running at the most part in 60 frames per second. With the exception of some of the more strenuous battles taking on 2 or more beasts at the same time in the latter half of the game, but then it might dip down to around under 40-45 frames per second. But still in all, this is nevertheless quite impressive to pull off with so much heavy traffic commencing on screen at once at almost all times. So in regards to performance, godeater 3 fires on almost all cylinders. Getting used to, now on the flip side, control-wise, it may take a little bit of getting used to, and it does have a slight bit of a learning curve, so to speak. You have your basic light and heavy attacks by pushing square or triangle on the playing on the PS4, respectively. But also triangle is used as another function as well, a crucial one, which is your Devourer attack, which builds up your damage output and your strength as you execute by holding down one of the shoulder buttons and pressing triangle simultaneously. It may take a bit of wrap the old noggin around, but once you do a few fights or a couple dozen fights or a dozen fights rather, you'll be god eating like a champ. Also, some other control mechanics are a bit confusing as well to execute, or they were for me, but remembering how to execute, I felt, throughout my playthrough, to use items you have to press the touchpad, I believe, and then R1, L1 to select left and right to cycle through them, and press square to use a selected item. In my brain, though, when I see an item menu pop up, I immediately think to press left or right on a D-pad, a directional pad, to filter through the usable list of items, not the shoulder buttons. Like I said, it's more of unlearning what you have learned in the lines of training your brain to the game's controls. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more different, like a little confusing. I would have chosen it's like the road less travel type thing. I would have chosen a different control scheme, but that's neither here nor there. It's just something outside of the norm that you just have to get used to. So next up is gameplay and a bit about the story. From what I gathered in my experience with godeater 3, the story is set on a world where humanity was destroyed in a post-apocalyptic like fashion, and in its wake, these beast-like creatures rose up, known only as the origami, whose purpose is only to consume and leave destruction in their wake. And it's up to you, the God Eaters, to quell and control their surplus growth and population by using your God Arc powers to successfully vanquish the Aragami whenever you encounter them. So you use your created character and gang of ragtag other God Eaters alike, and are tasked with forming a caravan to go across the planet to find more viable resources and run into other clans and factions, and even Neo from the Matrix in the form of a little girl named Feme rather. And just know that, I'm not going to spoil the story for you guys, but just know it ends in somewhat of an emotional sense that may be tugging at your heartstrings a little bit in some of the final moments of the game. But the story, as the story unfolds in a cinematic, it does so in a cinematic type of way, with cutscenes, as well as give you more of a movie theater or anime style feel. And even some of the cutscenes are fully presented in full animation, like anime style as well, which feels right at home here. The gameplay mechanics consist of primarily hack and slash and shooting from a third-person perspective. You create your own character, male or female, with your desired name, and then proceed to pick out what type of weapon you want to start with, which can be changed later on, which ranges from melee weapons such as knives, long swords, buster swords, hammers, and even scythes and spherical moonlight blades. In addition to the melee weapons, you do have projectile gun-like weapons such as a shotgun or rifles, or you can change the bullet types, such as which have different effects, such as healing bullets to heal allies, or stun bullets to stun enemies, and so on and so forth. The game has a tremendous amount of RPG-like elements, from obtaining blueprints for missions to craft and upgrade your entire arsenal, from melee weapons to firearms, and even your shield you can upgrade, which repels enemy attacks when you block. It comes in a few forms, like light shields to block like half damage, but disperse in a short amount of time. It's a big mammoth-like shield which takes longer to draw out, but absorb almost all the enemy damage. You can also purchase items from a local vendor in the hub-like area, such as healing items for HP, status effects, and more, and you can even craft raw materials if you don't feel like grinding for mats during missions. There are 7 ranks or chapters in the game, and each with their own string of story missions to advance the plot as well, or several side missions to undertake as well if you feel like beefing up your weapons a bit. There is also full-fledged 4-player online co-op mode in which you can play the entirety of the game in co-op mode, and that is what I ended up doing with the buddy, and it was great. There was no lag or disconnects, and everything ran smoothly for the most part, albeit some rather short but frequent load times. In between the various missions you have to undertake. You can also choose to take on assault missions, which and join up to 7 people online randomly for a massive battle that lasts a long time, but in the end you end up reaping some serious rewards if you finish them. There's also elemental damage as well for your weapons, and you can come in quite handy depending on what type of Aragami you're facing in the field of battle. Some are weak to fire, others are weak to ice, and others are lightning, and so on and so forth. It made me feel like the game drew heavily influence from RPGs of the past, or like action games of the past, platforms such as Mega Man or Pokemon, and I feel it felt fitting here as some Aragamis you face as a fire lion beast. Others are composed almost entirely of lightning or ice. But for me, my build was based on a heavy build, where I just ended up just swinging my big fucking dick BDP, big dick playa hammer, and just swung at anything that moved and it got in my way. And by the time you reach rank 6, and if you upgrade your weapons accordingly with every rank or every chapter of the game, getting blueprints and so on and so forth, you'll end up looking at like damage per second, like DPS up to like 300, 400 base damage easily, with crits landing in the low thousands. How you complete each mission depends on how you exploit the Aragami's weakness and break parts of their body and weaken them until they are finally destroyed. It feels a lot like Monster Hunter at the end of the day, and honestly, it's like an anime Monster Hunter when you get down to the nitty gritty, and that's just fine because it plays really well in that regard.
Come, we can take you back to your own vessel.
Who are you? Can't let strangers take you away. Claire told me.
There's no need to worry. I have made it my mission to offer a helping hand to young ages. They are the ones who represent our future.
So yeah, in regards to the sound, music, and voice, the musical score can be quite emphasized at times, especially in the more dramatic story-like sections of the game, and can really set the tone and atmosphere quite nicely, while the sound effects on the flip side may get a little repetitious on the more missions you tackle, as you likely hear the same sound effects over and over and over again from Aragami, and the characters' one-liners get really repetitive and somewhat stuck in your head, not in the good way, as they attack the beasts of burden. So, but the voice acting, on the other hand, if you choose, you get to choose whether you want to hear the game in full voice acting or Japanese. And I kind of recommend that you listen in English, because it helps when in the field of battle. Your operator will help yell out helpful tips, and such as when their Aragami is weak, or if there's enemies flanking up on you, getting on your flank side or whatnot. But the quality of the voice acting, I found, was decent, for as decent as it can be for English voice acting translated from Japanese. It's decent, nothing really to write home about, but some of it can get to you, like emotionally in the end. But overall, it's just pretty like cut and dry for the most part, I felt. But except in the last final moments of the game, that's when they really amp up the acting, and it really takes over. On to replay value. I'm going to go with high here, folks. Yes, while God Eater 3 has somewhat of a long learning curve in the controls and some gameplay aspects, once you get into the swing and flow of things, you may find yourself hooked and wanting to come back for more and more until the end, like I was. It had that kind of pull like Monster Hunter, like that type of game, where you just want to do one more mission to see if you can get the drop materials you need to upgrade that next weapon or shield or whatnot to the next rank, and doing missions co-op with a friend or a group of friends, up to 4, like I said, online, with a group of 4 friends, 3 other friends, is that much more enjoyable and could keep you playing for weeks upon weeks on end. And finally, it brings me to my overall score, and is it worth your time? I'm going with an 8 out of 10 here. God Eater 3 will chew you up and spit you back out again, and before it does so, you may find yourself becoming the utmost adept monster slaying badass, and any fan of Monster Hunter series or cooperative games, like this, to pick up and go on a slaying spree, beating the ever-loving crap out of any creature that crosses your path, at least 4 times your size, will find some type of enjoyment here, as I did. While I never played the first 2 God Eater games, I am somewhat glad my friend convinced me to get this game and give the 3rd one a go. And I can only say, if there's a God Eater 4 coming out there and planned in the future, I'll definitely be putting on my Aragami slaying hat once more. But like I said, it's not going to be for everybody. This is a variable one. Is it worth your time? It's variable, because a lot of people, it might just be too much for some people, too overwhelming. But it's neither here nor there. If you can actually handle games like Monster Hunter, or like these massive like monster slaying, pretty much like RPGs, you'd be good to go here. And it's always more fun with a friend. With that being said, that's my review of God Eater 3. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like and a sub, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, as always, for stopping by, and you have a great day.